told them, you either take me or I'm running away. I was in a stolen car. Probably the most honest I've ever been with anyone or myself.
Welcome to the Living Louder podcast. My guest today is one of the kindest, most compassionate people I know. I met her, I actually saw her on social media when I started stalking her husband, Manny Lopez, and then I followed kind of her journey as well. And she has this amazing recovery journey. She's like my dear friend. Manny and Mysti are both eternal friends of my husband and I, Chad and I, and their family is just beautiful. So I'm so grateful. Thank you, Mysti.
Yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, so I know it's kind of fun. We got this little studio in the house.
Yeah, it's so cool.
So I think I told you, like the first time I saw you on social media, you were graduating drug court, and I just saw a woman who had been through a lot, who loved her kids, who was fighting a battle that probably a lot of people can't comprehend, just to have the basic things that I was given. Like I had parents and a family that gave me automatically things that you've had to work so hard for.
Yeah.
And I could see that in you. And so I'm really grateful that I got to know you.
Yeah,
and you're better than everything I even saw on social media.
Thank you.
Will you share, I mean, you just had a baby too, so you're going to be emotional anyway, which is such a beautiful part of your journey. But let's go back. Like, what was it like for you growing up?
Oh, I think trauma started for me the minute I exited,
Really?
Maybe even the minute I was in there.
Oh.
So for me, it was my mom was addicted to meth.
Yeah.
My father was in prison most of my life. He was a heroin addict. And so I don't have a ton of memories of him. I just remember always, I think I have like maybe 2 or 3 memories of him, but I was always such a daddy's girl because you always seek what you don't have, right?
Right.
With my mom, I was with her until about the age of 9, but during that time she was dealing drugs, she was doing a lot of fraud, and there was a lot of dangerous people in and out of our house. And it was just a lot of chaos. I learned from a very young age, the quieter you make yourself, the safer you are. Yeah. And so I just kind of gained this skill of checking out what was around me all the time, people's behaviors, who was safe, who wasn't.
You were probably in fight or flight, like always trying to protect yourself.
All the time. It was always survive mode. And we grew up with this mentality, like family before anything, right? And so you never asked for help. You never brought attention to the family because that's what you're supposed to protect. And during this time, so I would go to my grandma and grandpa's a lot on my dad's side, my grandma Carol and my grandpa Bill. And that's where a lot of my sexual abuse started. My grandpa was an alcoholic, and he started sexually abusing me when I was in kindergarten. So from the time kindergarten to about 5th grade is when I finally spoke out about it. And it was pretty traumatic, because if not, like my mom was pretty aggressive. She was a pretty aggressive
she used
addict.
Meth.
Yeah. And so she was kind of all over the place. She was in an extremely toxic relationship.
We love you, Kat.
Yeah,
sorry.
do. Don't drink any Monster. That's not good for you.
Not gonna work. All right, Kit Kat.
And so, abuse was extremely normalized for me. It wasn't something I didn't know any different. Yeah. And so that was. I remember when I finally spoke out about my grandpa. It was this pretty big thing, and my family on my dad's side, they were very upset that I kind of had outed the family secret, right? And so nothing really changed in that dynamic.
So the cops weren't called, or the?
They were called. Not a lot happened. Okay. I don't feel like, especially back then, like sexual predators, it wasn't something
they talked about as much.
And it wasn't something that was, they basically got a slap on the wrist.
Wow.
Right. And so I remember, at the age of 9, I would fly out to California every summer because I had 2 older sisters that were taken from my mom. They lived with their dad. And so we would all meet in the summer at my grandma Dana's, my mom's mom. And so that's kind of when this had all been outed. I was 9 years old and I was out there, and I remember I was supposed to go home, but my mom was getting raided. And so she called my grandma and asked her to keep me. And I had a ton of act out behaviors. I mean, you can only imagine.
Sure.
I'd basically been raising myself my whole life. And then all of a sudden there was all these structure and rules. And I had a lot of sexually acting out behaviors because of all the trauma I had gone through with my grandpa. And so it was really hard for my grandma.
Yeah.
And so she gave me to my Uncle Darren. He was very strict, very structured, and he finally got me to a place of kind of like stability. And then he brought his ex-wife back into the home. Her name was Mysti, and her daughter. And she was extremely jealous of our relationship. I don't know if it's because I was his blood family or what it was. He had to pay a lot of attention to me, a lot of structure around me because of all my trauma. And so she didn't like that. And so I was very much treated differently than her daughter.
Yeah.
And like to the point, like she would cut my hair really short, you know, so I would kind of look like a boy, or just little things like that, like leave me out. And so my uncle really pursued calling the police and getting that dealt with my grandpa, like taking him to court and things like that. But by the time I was in 6th grade, his wife, Mysti, had taken me to this therapist. It was the strangest therapist I had ever been to. She was like, you're going to put your mom's name on a piece of paper, say everything you hate about her, and then you're going to rip her up and put her in a trash can, right? And I was like, I'm not doing that.
Right,
you know?
you're a little kid.
Yeah, I'm like, this is my mom. I love her.
Right.
It doesn't matter what she's done.
Right.
And then they were to the point, like Mysti would not respond to me unless I called her mom. She's like, oh, you're going to call us mom now. And I'm like, I'm not doing that. Like, you're not my mom, you know? And so we ended up, then during this time when I was going through all these traumatic things with this therapist and Mysti, and my father had gotten out. Of prison. He was doing really well for the first time in his life. He had his own place, and he had called my Uncle Darren and told him, like, I want my daughter back. All he's ever wanted is to be a father, and he felt like he was in this really good position to do so. And so my uncle's like, oh yeah, I'm going to send you this piece of paper to sign. I can't put her on a bus unless, you know, I have rights to her. And so he kind of tricked my dad. My dad, you know, he dropped out in the 6th grade. He had a lot of faith in people, and especially because this was a family member, right? And so he signed the paper. And then my Uncle Darren said, oh, I'm not sending her. He had basically tricked my dad into signing over his rights.
Oh, wow.
And that pretty much destroyed my dad, right? And when I had found out, I was so heartbroken. I felt so betrayed and deceived. Because I had this one opportunity to be with my father, and he didn't allow that to happen. And so I started acting out a lot. I was really aggressive. I was really angry. And his wife, Mysti, ended up fighting me, like fist fighting me. I think I was 12 years old. And so the cops got called, and I told them, you either take me or I'm running away. I'll be on the streets, and I'm okay with that because I know I can survive it, right? And so they ended up putting me in group home. That's the first time I ever went to a group home, got put in foster care. And I remember it was like this little mini prison. It was all these wood houses, and there was all this barbed wire over the fences. And when I went in there, I was so happy. I felt it was the first time I had ever been around other kids that were just like me.
Wow.
And it's the first time I ever felt accepted. I didn't have to have my guard up. I didn't have to.
You actually felt safe in a jail.
I did.
Which is crazy. I say that often, that some of the abuse people suffer, they're safer incarcerated.
Yeah.
Wow.
But it was the first time I got to truly be myself, and people understood my pain because these kids had been through so much of the same.
Yeah.
And I really liked it there. Wow. I remember I was just like, I love it here.
Wow.
You know? And so that's when I met my adopted mom. Her name was Annette. she came and she kind of met with me a little bit. She'd been through a lot with foster kids, and we could be a really rough crowd because we're not used to having structure or parents or rules, or we just do whatever we want because nobody cares. And she was an extremely structured, disciplined lady. She was very, very sweet. She cared a lot. In that moment when I lived with her, I never saw it that way. I was like, she is a nightmare.
She's controlling. She's making me do hard things.
I would wake up every morning and, we would have to deep clean our bedrooms, deep clean the bathroom, vacuum the whole house before we went to school. And I was like, this is madness. You know what I mean?
Rules.
And so it was really good for a while. Once I realized, I think I did a lot of act out behaviors. I would like push her away because I wasn't used to people staying and kind of testing the waters. And she always like held me accountable because I had a lot of flirtatious behaviors with older men. Due to my sexual trauma.
Sure.
And so that was different. And I remember my dad had gotten out of prison again. Mm-hmm. He had went back. He had gotten out. This had been a few years. Well, first, when I was with her, I ended up taking my grandpa to court.
Civilly, or was it a criminal case?
It was a criminal case.
Okay.
Yeah. And so the state, because I was still in foster care, had flown me back to Utah to take him to court. Mm-hmm. And he pled guilty. He just said, I don't remember doing it, but if she said I did it, I must have. But he had done it to his own kids and the other grandkids. And so the whole family, I feel like, was extremely aware of how this was. So when he got found guilty and he got a slap on the wrist, he didn't
even go to prison?
No, he got put on probation and whatever. So, but I feel like this huge separation between my family and I since then, just because it's like...
You outed the family secret.
How could you lift that rug up and show what's going on, Mm-hmm. And so my dad had went back to prison, and I remember when he found out what happened with his dad. I still have the letter that he wrote me from prison, and he was so angry, and it was pretty sad. And that's a pretty messed up place to find out, right? Like everybody had kind of kept this from him. And when he finally got out, I don't know how I found out he was getting out, but I ended up calling him. I was like sneaking around using my friends' phones, and I was buying like these calling cards with my allowance so I could call him on the phone. And one day I called him because I had to have monitored phone calls with my family, and that would have to sit on the line and listen. And so I was sneaking around, and one day I called and he was in a coma. And then he had died. And that was a really hard thing for me. My whole world had shattered. And so I kind of had to tell on myself. And that was the first time my family, my grandma had talked to Annette and talked her into allowing me to come to my father's funeral in Utah. And that was the first time I had seen my family in about 7 years.
Wow.
It was a long time. So it was really hard. And so when I went to see my family, my grandpa was there. This is the first time he ended up going to jail. I don't know who called and told on him, but he did not tell his probation officer that I was going to be at the funeral where he was. Mm-hmm. And so he ended up going to jail for that violation. But I just remember, so my Uncle Cleet, my dad's little brother, he was kind of my hero. He would protect me from my grandpa a lot. When I was little, he would hide me. He would get beat for me, and things like that. And so he was kind of a huge father figure to me, and I was so happy to see him, and I was so happy to be around my family, and I was just like, this is where I belong. I don't belong in California. Mm-hmm. I just want my family. That's all I've ever wanted. And so when I came back, I really started acting out with Annette. I was like sneaking out of the house, stealing her car, just doing a lot of crazy things. And so she told me, okay, well, you're going to find a job, and that's all you're going to do this summer. You're going to work in the day, you're going to work in the night. And I remember I went to go look for a job, and I just never came back.
Wow.
And so I had hitchhiked. I was living homeless in the streets of Long Beach for about a week.
Wow.
And hitchhiking.
How old were you?
I was 15.
Wow.
Yeah.
So dangerous.
It was dangerous. Yeah. It was, I don't think you see it. You're just kind of in survival mode. And
Right.
I've been really good at adapting my whole life. I can adapt to anything.
Yeah.
And so finally I made it to Utah. And that's pretty much where my addiction began.
Wow.
Pretty heavily. So
you were living with your mom, so you were probably using with your mom.
Yeah, I didn't live with my mom when I first came back.
Okay.
She was in prison. And so I was just kind of doing whatever I wanted. I was living with my cousin and her boyfriend. And so everything was a party, you know? And then I remember when she started using, my Uncle Cleet had gotten out of prison and he was on the run. So I kind of moved him into the house without asking permission of anyone, right? I was like, my goal is to keep you safe at all costs because losing family was so hard for me after that. And I just feel like I had a lot of time to make up for. And so I remember when my cousin started using and then they were always in the basement. They were locking themselves in the basement. They were trying to keep me from it, you know, but in hindsight, that's not what it did. It drew me closer to it because I was like, man, I'm so sick of being left out all the time. And so I remember they all had left and I was so sick of being the oddball out that I had broken into the basement and got high because I was like, let's see what it's all about, you know? And so that's how it began. And I remember pretty quickly, I started selling drugs. I think I was about 16. And I remember when I had all the drugs, that's the first time my family saw me. I was important, right? My phone was always ringing. They always wanted to be around me because they had something they needed. And I just remember that feeling. And I was like, that's what I've always wanted, is to be seen by them or to be important to them. Yeah. And so I did that for a long time until I got pregnant. I was pregnant at 17, had my daughter at 18. I used the entire time. I was just in such
People don't understand.
Yeah.
I do.
Yeah.
But when you are in it, you would think I would never do that.
Yeah.
But when you are in a place of such brokenness and pain, you are absolutely surviving and you feel sickening about it.
Yeah.
Like it's not something that you don't absolutely hate about yourself. It just adds, but there's no way to stop.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, the environment I was in there, I just feel like there's no way anybody was sober around me. My whole family was using, you know?
It's just what you did.
Her father's family was all using. And so there was nowhere for me to go. And I think about all the help there is now today. It wasn't like that back then.
Things have changed for the better.
This is like 18 years ago, 18, 19 years ago. And so there just wasn't a lot of options. I felt pretty helpless. I mean, I could go live with my grandma and my grandpa, but why would I want to subject myself to that environment, you know? And so I just felt pretty alone and like I had no other choice.
Yeah.
And so that's why I did it. And I just remember like, I did not want to be trapped with the father of my daughter. I was like, I do not want to be stuck with these people. They're not anything I want to be stuck with. And so when I had her, I remember seeing her for the first time and it shifted a lot for me. I was like, oh, that's what unconditional love is. And it just kind of changed a lot of things for me. And I wanted to be sober in that moment. I was like, oh, I'm going to be the mom I need to be, right? But that's not how it worked out at all.
No.
I had no safe place to go, nobody to pick me up, except for her father's parents. And the day I got home from the hospital with her, their house got raided.
Oh, man.
And so she was taken. And I felt pretty helpless. I was like, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know where to go, you know? And so I ended up going on the run from those charges and getting pregnant again.
They took the baby, right?
They took the baby, yeah.
And right she was adopted out.
In the beginning, she wasn't. She was with a foster home, and I think they really preyed on my how young I was.
Right.
I really feel that. And, and not taking any accountability away, I should have definitely made some different choices and got my stuff together and, really fought for her. But that's not something I'd ever witnessed in my life either.
Know.
So I didn't know.
Didn't have the support.
What that looked like, right? I still had a lot of family around me, but they were all using still, stuck in their own cycle. And so I just kind of fell deeper into my addiction. And so with my son, I also used. And then I remember I was so sick with him. I had something called HELP syndrome. So it was like shutting down all my organs. And, but I remember being about 7.5 months pregnant, I got arrested. And I was in jail for a little while. And then I finally got out and I went to my first treatment center when I was 19.
Okay.
And so I remember going to court for my daughter and they told me, now you either sign over your rights, because I tried to hide my pregnancy from DCFS, but they told me you either sign over your rights to your daughter or we're taking your son too. And I was like, man, I don't think I can survive that again. Yeah. There's no way. Because it's such an empty feeling when your own baby is out of reach and you just can't get to them. I feel pretty helpless, you know? And so I was like, I will not go through that again. And so I did sign over my rights to her. She was with a really good home. She's with her, she's 18 now, but she's with her father's family. They're really great LDS Mormon people. And she's just had a really great life. You know, I hope. Yeah. I don't know for sure, but I would hope she's had a really good life, a lot better than what I could have given her in that moment.
And I can relate to that because I placed a child for adoption. It's a pain that you don't understand unless you've experienced it. But what you hope for them is just that they had everything beautiful.
Yeah, I hope so. And so I went to my first treatment center at 19. And I did really well. It was a 9-month program. I did great. And I felt like I really figured it out, which I didn't. I didn't learn a whole lot thinking about it
but
now.
You got sober and then you feel good for the first time and you're like, I got this. Right. But there's all that trauma and stuff going on inside.
Yeah, it was, it made me really, I became really, I got on a high horse.
Okay.
I felt like I was so much better than all the drug addicts out there, right? I was like, I hated meth addicts. And a lot of that I can recognize now is just because I never worked on any of that trauma, you know? I never worked on anything. I never held myself accountable for anything. I never worked on any of that. And so I just kind of faked it till I made it, got the boxes checked off and got out of trouble, and which kind of put me in a position where I was it was more destructive than anything, right? Yeah. And so then I met my ex-husband. I think I was 19 at this time. I was working. I had my son, and so I met my ex-husband, and I got pregnant almost immediately.
Yeah. With cash?
Yeah, with cash. And then I moved to Logan with his father, and I gave up everything. You know, I was really...
All the drugs. You were clean.
Yeah, I was clean. I had graduated my treatment center. I was done with therapy, everything. So I transferred my probation out there. And it was not a great situation. Yeah. You know, he had just done 7 years in prison. He got sentenced, I believe he was 17 when he went in. So a lot of his childhood was in there. And so he didn't get to experience a whole lot of life. Yeah. And then he gets out and immediately I'm pregnant and he has this whole family to take care of. And I can recognize, like, in the moment I can see that, you know, but that was probably really difficult for him. Yeah. And then...
And it was an abusive relationship.
Very. Okay. Very, very. It didn't start that way. Yeah. But it got there very quickly. I remember the minute I got off probation, I started drinking. You know, he was partying a lot when he first got out while I was pregnant. And so I felt very alone, and I had no family. I had isolated myself in this tiny town, and I had my son, Aaron, and it was a hard adjustment, but I just figured it out, right? And then he had ended up getting a DUI. And so he went back to prison for a short amount of time after I had had our son Cash. And during that time, I just kind of went wild. I just started drinking and partying and just doing whatever I want. I felt like I was like getting back at him. I was like, I can't believe you made me look like such a fool in this tiny town, you know? And so I just really went hard with the alcohol. And then he got out of prison and we kind of did this thing together, and it just got really bad. We were both pretty immature and lost, and alcohol kind of became my crutch. So I just kind of had given up meth for alcohol. And then I was kind of a raging alcoholic for 9 years. And so I think about all the drugs I've ever experienced. That's the hardest one.
Alcohol is the hardest for you.
Yeah,
Wow.
It was. I really felt like I would never get away from it. By the end of my alcohol extravaganza, I was 298 pounds.
Wow.
I was so unhealthy, and I just wanted to drink and drink and drink. And so by the end of our relationship, it had become extremely physically abusive on both sides, right? Emotionally abusive on both sides. And we were just not a good fit. There was so much trauma we had given each other, lack of trust. Like there was no way we could ever get back to that. And so I remember I had taken the kids in the middle of the day. I told him I was going to an infusion. We had gotten in this really big fight. Cops were called. And I ended up driving to Missouri to my mom's house.
Yeah.
And so that was the only way I could separate. It was such a enmeshed relationship. I mean, this man had basically raised me. I was with him from the time I was 19 until I was almost 30 years old. Right. And so it was just a lot. And so getting away from that was really difficult for me because I had no identity outside of him. Yeah. And that played a huge role in my separation from him. I didn't know who I was. I was really upset. I really thought like he would do this grand gesture just because we had been together so long of coming after me, or I don't know what I expected, but it didn't happen, whatever it was.
He's like, bye.
Right. And I couldn't believe, like, I can see it now. Like, he was pretty angry. I'd taken his kids from him, as he should be. Right. And my mom, I had relapsed with my mom out there. She came home one day, and we had used many times together in the past. And, you know, she came home and she was using, and I was like, I know you're high. And I was pretty deep in my alcohol addiction during this time. And it got way worse in Missouri because they had like the mini bottles in the stores. I mean, it was everywhere. Right. And so, what I had found is when I started using, it made me sober and I could drink more. So that made me pretty excited, right?
You're and, like, give me some meth so I can drink more alcohol.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. And so that was my whole life, was just locking myself in a room and just drinking a bottle. And so eventually I noticed I stopped picking up the bottle.
Alcohol. So the meth took,
yeah.
A lot of people say that, whether it's for opiates or alcohol, they'll trade one drug for another. They'll say, thank you, meth. I finally got off of that.
Yeah, I felt...
but it's a demon of its own.
It is, yes. But not like alcoholism.
For you.
I felt so entrapped by alcoholism that I was so grateful.
It's very insidious. I'm lucky I've never been an alcoholic because I work with people in addiction, and alcoholism's a really tough one. It's everywhere.
Everywhere.
Yeah.
Socially acceptable. It's a party drug, you know? Yeah. And so you don't really have to be in the closet or quiet about it. Or,
It's legal.
Yeah. And so when I broke free from that, I was so grateful. I was like, oh, I never thought I would get away from this. Right. Well, you know, then I was deep in my meth addiction, which in hindsight, I don't think I take everything so extreme. And I think my mom, she was just kind of like a monthly warrior at that time. And I just kind of took it and ran with it. So she would be on the road and I'd be still using. And so she was, you know, I think she probably had a lot of guilt for that.
Because your addiction was more intense than hers.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, your trauma was probably more intense than hers, honestly.
Well, I also didn't have a purpose. Right. I mean, I had my boys with me.
You didn't have a job. You really didn't have anything internal confidence. I look at myself and I'm like, No wonder I just felt like crap
Yeah.
about myself. I hadn't done anything
Yeah.
to feel good about myself.
Well, I had no idea who I was outside of my ex-husband, right?
Yeah.
And then when he never showed up for me or tried to fight for us or make things better, I was like, man, who am I without this person?
Yeah.
If I'm nothing to this person, how can I be anything to anyone else? And so that's really where my thought went. And so I ended up getting DCFS called on me out in Missouri. And I was like, oh, I'm not doing this. I'm not at all. And so I packed my stuff up and I went right back to Utah. And I was like, yeah, we're not doing this. And then I dropped my kids off at their dad's door and I did good for a couple weeks, but it's really hard living in a small town when you're separated from this person and everybody knows you guys. And I felt like people were like reporting back to him what I was doing, who I was talking to, and I just couldn't handle it, And so, I ended up going to one of my uncle's houses and I just picked up right where I started,
Started selling drugs again?
Yeah, pretty quickly.
And it was meth at this point?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was meth at this point, and it wasn't long before heroin came into the picture.
Right.
Which is crazy because I always told myself, we kind of bargain with ourselves as addicts.
I'll never use heroin.
My dad was a heroin addict. He ended up getting HIV from it, from sharing needles, and it was a pretty awful way to die. And during this time, so in 2013, my Uncle Clete was murdered. Mm-hmm. And this really broke a lot of things for me, my whole foundation. The one person that truly loved me for me, one family member that supported me or would show up for me and ask nothing in return, I felt like he was taken from me. And so that was a lot.
Yeah.
Right. And then 2 years later, my Uncle Terry committed suicide because he couldn't handle a world where his brothers weren't in. Right. And so it destroyed a lot. And so in my mind, when I was selling again, I was like, I'm going to make sure this never happens to my family again.
Yeah.
I will get to the very top so they have everything they need and they don't have to worry because it was a drug deal gone bad that he ended up getting killed over. And so it was justified in my mind. I was like, if I have everything they need, they'll never have to struggle or worry about somebody killing them or anything like that. And so that's what I did. And it was a pretty awful experience, right? I feel like when I was a teenager, I didn't have a lot of responsibilities, so it was kind of a different experience. Plus, I had all these uncles and things to keep me safe. But it was not that way this time in my early 30s, right? Or my late 20s, early 30s. And
so you had the kid's father has the kids, and you're basically on the streets and you're drug dealing.
Yep.
And probably a whole lot of trauma that came with all of that.
Yeah. It was a pretty rough experience this last go round. A lot of sexual trauma, a lot of abuse. And I just felt I was so broken. I didn't know how to get out of it because it was not the same experience when I was a teenager.
Yeah.
All my family was dead.
Yeah.
So I didn't have that protection or that safety net. And, I had my kids and, it was just pretty awful.
And I feel like as a mother who's used drugs, the pain of not being the mother that I know I should be or could be is so deep. I say this, I'm like, there is no pain greater than a mother who hurts her kids.
Yeah.
And society wants to look at somebody that's hurt their kids and just say that's the worst person. But as I listen to your story, I'm like, this little girl was hurt. Yeah. And of course she's going to grow up and not know how to take care of kids that she loves and wants to.
Yeah.
Well,
when you're never shown that, right? And the minute I started using, though, it put a lot of things in perspective for me, and I was not angry at my mom ever. She did the best with what she knew how. Also, she was never taught how to do that either.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah.
That you can love her and have no resentment for your mother.
Oh, not at all. She's my best friend, really.
Yeah.
So
I've met her. She's pretty awesome.
Yeah. She is. And, we're really close. And I think now she gets that experience as a grandmother. She gets to be what she always wanted to be as a mother.
Yeah, I can attest to that too for me with my kids. So for you, at some point, you and Manny's paths crossed, and Manny was just this broken person who
We were
never
both
had
very-
a mother.
Yeah.
And he was taken out of his home from the time he was a young boy. And when he shares the story, he's like, as soon as I met her, I knew she was the one.
Yeah.
She was, what do you say? She was damaged just like me.
We were very damaged. I was extremely broken at this point, and I was selling a lot, so I always had a lot of people around me, but really I felt very alone.
Yeah.
And I was I've always been extremely self-aware of the situations going on.
Yeah.
Like I knew,
You grew up having to be to keep.
I knew I was not important to anyone around me, right? Except for what I could offer them. And that was okay with me, because one thing I
what you've got.
really hate is watching people suffer, because I know what it's like to suffer. And so if I can give in any way, I will.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what I did in my addiction. I just gave and I gave and I gave and I gave. And so that's how I ended up meeting my husband. I was at a motel. He had just gotten out of prison. He was coming from the halfway house to get some of his belongings from one of my friends.
Mm-hmm.
And, I was there, and I was it was a pretty immediate connection, but I knew my friend. She was very excited about him coming, and it was really awkward. I'm super socially awkward anyway, especially when I'm using. And so I just really tried to not even make eye contact with him or get away, talk to him. And so I ended up giving him some stuff to take back in the halfway house or to do whatever, right? To make some money. And I never expected to hear from him again. You never do when you give somebody free drugs, right?
Yeah.
Especially people you don't know. And I remember when he called me a few days later, I was like, who is this? Like, I was so in shock that he had reached back out to me. And so we met up again, and that's kind of where the beginning of the end for us started. We just never separated after that. And I remember I was like buying him these Ubers, because my car had been broke down, and I was buying him these Ubers to come see me from the halfway house. He'd pretend he'd go to work, and so he'd come and we'd hang out and not do great things together, right? And so I definitely didn't support him trying to be better. But you don't look at it like that when you're
At
in
that
the thick
point,
of it, right? And I remember he went on the run from the halfway house for one day, he went on the run, ended up going back to prison to spend one day with me.
Yeah, he shares that story. He's like, I loved her so much.
Yeah.
I was willing to go back to prison to spend one night with her.
And this is only like, we had only been seeing each other like a week at this point.
Wow.
It was super quick.
Very fast that you guys,
And one thing I'm really good at, I'm an extremely loyal person.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really important back then. It was really important that people saw me as that.
Right.
Like, I'll do whatever. I'll take care of you while you're locked up. That's something I had done for my family the whole time. My uncles, I made sure they always had mail or whatever it was that was really important to me. And so when he got locked up, I just answered all his phone calls, put money on his books, wrote him letters. And I think that's something he had never really experienced with anybody else before.
Well, he was raised by the system.
Yeah.
He had no parents. So like the fact that somebody's showing up for him. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, but that was important for me because I know what it's like to feel alone. Right. And I'm not going to create this connection with you and it just goes away just because you're not in my face. That's not how it works with me. Right. I love pretty deeply. And so then he got out again and it was a nightmare. It was, there was really good points, right? But we were both pretty heavy in our addiction and we had brought a lot of trauma from our past relationships with us. And so it was really difficult to trust each other or, plus we weren't thinking clearly. And so it became abusive rather quickly for both of us. And for me, I felt like I had been in this controlling relationship with my ex-husband for so long. And so I'd give him a little bit of power and then I'd be like, oh no, you can't have that. I'm going to take it all back from you and try to demasculate you in front of a room full of people because you're not going to control me. That's what's not going to happen. And so, it just became pretty toxic very quickly.
Yeah.
And, but I had never felt connected to somebody like him. And here's the thing, what separates Manny from everyone else with me is we could be hating each other in one moment and fighting, and we would take off from each other, and he'd be in a room full of people, he'd be hating me at that moment, but they would start trying to capitalize off that or talk crap about me, and he would get very upset. He's like, you're not going to talk about her like that. You know what I mean?
He's loyal.
And so that's something I had never experienced, loyalty.
Yeah.
Right? And so I was like, wow. And that's what pretty much captured me. And so he ended up going back to prison. And I had felt pretty alone at this point. He was locked up for a long time. We didn't know when he was getting out. And so I was experiencing all this trauma from these people around me currently. And I was just pretty heavy in my heroin addiction and fentanyl addiction at this point, and I just didn't care anymore. It's like, man, you're either going to kill me or send me to prison. I just don't care anymore, And that's kind of where I had my spiritual awakening. So I remember the day I got arrested. Well, I had gotten arrested before. I kind of manipulated my way out of jail. I told them, I'm going to go to treatment. And I ran from treatment. Mm-hmm. And so at this point, I was in a stolen car. And I remember telling myself, I don't want to do this anymore.
Yeah, so tired.
I just get it over with, And so I was going to try to shoot up for the first time, heroin. And I was like, I can't do it anymore. Yeah. And man, God really intervened with me that day. Because I remember the minute I got out of the car, I just picked up everything I needed and I was going to just be done with it. And as soon as I got out of the car, I was swarmed by the police. And that was the end of it for me. And so I was really grateful to get arrested that day. So, yeah.
Yeah.
And that's how it started. And I had this opportunity. I was in jail and I was just so sick. And they took me in front of my judge and he's like, you're going to be here a while, princess. I don't even want to see you for a while, because he's the one who had let me out before. And so I was like, it's fine. I'm just going to take everything head on. I'm going to try to rebuild this relationship with my kids and try to call them whenever I can. And I know they'd heard it all before, so I'm not going to try to make them all these empty promises. And I remember I was getting put on drug court, and they were going to release me back to the streets or to the homeless shelter.
Yeah.
And I was like, are you out of your mind? Do you know, I'm telling you right now, it was the first time, it was probably the most honest I've ever been with anyone or myself. I was like, if you release me today, you will not see me again until I'm back in here.
Yeah.
Probably with new charges or dead. And I told him, I need an all-women's facility. That's what I need because I have so much trauma. And if you put me on the streets, I'm going to do what I can to survive. I'm not going to be sober. And so I sat in there quite a bit longer, which was fine until a bed opened up and I ended up going to House of Hope. Yeah. So, yeah.
And what was that like for you?
It was difficult. I'd spent my whole life not looking at myself or really thinking about what I want to be or who I am outside of saving or helping other people. That was my goal in life, is just whatever I can do to make your life bigger or make you reach your dream or whatever it is. That's always been my MO. I've never had an identity of my own. I've been a chameleon my whole life. And so it was really difficult for me. And to be around a bunch of women was really hard also because I've learned to really distrust women. And so it was really difficult for me. And it's kind of a behavior program, right? They hold you accountable. And I'm not used to that at all.
Yeah.
And,
that criminal code ran deep for you.
And so that was really difficult to jump on board with. But once it kind of clicked for me, if somebody cares about you, they'll hold you accountable.
Right.
Right. And this is the journey I'm on. And that's what I need to get to my kids and to myself. And if somebody's putting me in a position where there's a block in front of that journey, they don't care about me.
Yeah.
And I'm not putting up with that anymore. People have not cared about me my whole life. And so, it's kind of that mission, we really teach people how to treat us. And so I just did. I just started holding everybody accountable as I could. I didn't care if you're sneaking candy in, man.
Yeah, you're going to call them out.
I'm going to call you out for everything. And the minute I started gaining some value in myself, that's when things really fell into place for me, because I'd never had that my whole life. And I was like, nobody's ever going to take this from me. I don't care. And so, yeah, I just kind of hit the ground running after that.
Yeah.
So
you graduated that program.
I did.
And drug court.
Yeah.
Successfully.
Yeah. So when I graduated residential, luckily I had a really amazing therapist who had a really high bullcrap meter because I've kind of
been able to do that your whole life.
That's been my skill, is to manipulate people and make them believe anything.
Yeah.
Right. And so it wasn't like that with her. She just told me, you're going to be here for a long time if you keep trying to bullcrap me. Right. And so I did. I was in residential for about 6 months. Took me a while to figure it out. And then when I got into IOP, Manny was getting out of prison. And during my residential, like I kind of really mourned that relationship.
With you and Manny.
Yeah. I didn't think.
Yeah, because you knew you had to put yourself first at this point, and you can't depend on somebody else to change. I mean, really, when you get, if you're going to get sober and you're in a toxic relationship, you've got to base it on that. It's not going to be a part of your life. If it does, great, but that's out of your control, right?
Well, there was so much toxicity and trauma between the two of us in such a short amount of time. I mean, I couldn't even listen to music in residential without crying because everything went back to him. Right. And so I worked really hard on that in residential, that trauma, and learning how to be independent and not enmeshed with other people. And so I had really mourned that relationship in residential. I didn't think it would ever be a thing again. Right. I just knew if I'm going to make it, I have to really put myself and my kids first. And that's something I'd never done. And so when I got out and I was in IOP, him and I had spoken for the first time. Yeah. And I was just like, man, I just love you so much, and I was like, but here's the deal. I will not do this again. You will never come before me or my kids. And so you either figure it out or leave me alone, and that was really hard. I'd never set boundaries like that before. And, but he did, he figured it out. So it was pretty cool.
And he loves you a lot. Yeah. You guys have such a beautiful relationship. Yeah. Makes me really happy.
Took a lot of hard work.
I know.
But it was cool because, when he got out, I remember I took him to Odyssey. I picked him up from prison, and I just told him, if anything, just run a clean program. That's all I'm asking you to do. Don't put me in a position to where I have to do anything I'm not comfortable with, because I'll tell on you. I will hold you accountable. And I'm just not into it. And we were co-defendants. And so the fact that my drug court team even allowed us to speak was crazy. Yeah. And so, because they're pretty notorious for no contact orders.
Right.
And so I think the difference is we really involved them in our relationship because we knew there was a lot of trauma. Yeah. And so he signed like a ROI for my drug court team. They could call him while he was call and check on him in treatment and see what he was doing.
You were just 100% authentic, really. Yeah. You weren't trying to sneak or hide anything.
Yeah. And I told him, I don't want to hide anything. And I really know I have a future with this person. And so why wouldn't it be better for you guys to be involved? Yeah. Because of our trauma.
Takes a lot of trust though on your part.
And so for them, he signed a ROI for my caseworker and my judge. And so they can call and check on him anytime he was in Odyssey and find out what he was struggling with, what he was, how he was doing in there. And then they approved him to move into an apartment with me. And I think that was the difference, is I was just 100% transparent the whole time. And so.
How has God been a part of that for you? And that's probably hard to trust. I mean, I know that's been a journey, but I'm just saying, in all of it, looking back, do you see that?
Oh, I can see it
or your
now.
Faith or whatever it is. But I mean, I know.
But I grew up in there was no Bible in my home.
Right.
There was no God. You didn't call out for help. And in my experience, the people that protect you are the ones that hurt you the most.
Sure.
Right. And when you ask for help, you also get hurt worse. And so I think there was always this notion of God in my life, but it was never something I tapped into. I just kind of was like, okay, this is the hand I've been dealt. God's not going to save me, right? I just have to go through it, and that's okay. And so I think that was the first question Manny asked me when he got out of prison. How's your relationship with God? I was like,
Manny's always had one, hasn't he? He's always believed in a God that loved him. Yeah. He didn't have a real father, but he believed that he had a heavenly father.
And I did not. It was so opposite for me.
Yeah.
I was just like, I know he's there. I'm just not important to him. And that's okay, right? Because I have to deal with this down here. I don't have time to think about that kind of loss or what that felt like. And so that wasn't somebody I've never been taught scriptures, or the only stories of the Bible I know are the ones they made movies out of. And so it was very foreign to me.
Yeah.
And he's always been like this grand person in my mind. And then my son got diagnosed with a rare genetic disorder that's very progressive.
Yeah.
And I felt like, oh, he did this because I
deserved it.
Right.
Yeah.
So now I have to watch my son suffer, even though it had nothing to do with me using.
Right.
And so I was pretty angry. It kind of broke that image. I was like, oh, he's just like the rest of us. That's why we're made in his image. He's hateful and revengeful. And so I just kind of always separated myself from God. But that's shifted quite a bit since this journey. I do recognize if you want to keep recovery, you have to have somebody greater than yourself to give your problems to. And so I started meeting with the missionaries. Manny started going to church, and I was like, I'm not going with you.
Yeah.
You got me.
That's you.
Messed up. Yeah, you have fun. I'm not doing that. I'm not going to a church. I'm not even going to entertain that idea.
Yeah.
Like your relationship with God is yours. Mine's very confusing and broken, and I don't know how to feel about him, and it's not something I even want to look at right now. But I became very open to it. The missionaries came. They started teaching me and answering a lot of questions for me, and I knew at the end. So I ended up getting baptized in December, and what really shifted that for me is not so much my faith, but their faith. Right? I was like, your guys' faith is unwavering. Like, that's so powerful. And so I was like, even if I don't believe 100%, I believe you believe. And that's pretty powerful to me. And so it's the community, right? And even if the religion's not true or whatever it is, I really believe in the community. And I've never experienced a group of people that just genuinely care about you and don't want anything. So that's what kind of shifted it for me. And so I kind of capitalize off their own faith, and I think it will rub off. So
I love that. Thank you for being willing to share. I love you.
I love you too.
I feel so blessed to have been able to meet you guys and just to be a part of your life. You're genuinely some of the best people I know.
Ditto, Portia. You've changed our lives immensely. So I think God really put us in each other's path, because my life today would not be what it is if we hadn't met you. So
thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. It's a wrap. Thanks for joining me and Mysti today on Living Louder, and we love you guys.
Yeah.